Okay, here it comes. Perfect. Okay, everybody, we're going to call this meeting of the Growth Committee to order for open session, June 20th. Thank you, Chaplain. 22nd, sorry. And first up, we have the approval of the minutes for June 6th. Mayor Reardon, Councilor Harris. Next, approval of the agenda. Councilor Lowe and Councilor Harris. Any disclosures of conflict of interest? Not a one. And okay, we're going to move right into item 7.1, ethnocultural small grant program with an introduction from, David Dobbelstein is not here, sorry. Jacqueline, you want to take this away?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Cameron, members of.
Do I have this thing?
Good afternoon, Chair Killen and members of Growth Committee. We are before you this afternoon with recommendations around creating a new permanent ethnocultural grant program. This is, as you will recall, this was piloted under the Succeed and Stay initiative, and we're pleased to be before you to make recommendations to make this a permanent program moving forward. This is very much aligned with the initiatives around the city's immigration strategy. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer Walshutz to deliver today's presentation.
And Mayor Node Reardon, Commissioner Hamilton, Councillor Harris, Councillor Lowe, colleagues, Councillor Radwan, and CAO McGovern, and Deputy Mayor McKenzie, who is not here. On behalf of the Growth Team, I bring before you today the Ethnocultural Grant Policy for your review and approval. Our pilot program was very successful, bringing us to 55 ethnocultural groups. So I'm just going to go through the presentation. The purpose of the program, an ethnocultural community, for the purpose of this program, an ethnocultural community group is defined by shared country of origin or ancestry among group members. So for example, the Kenyan group, the Kenyan Cultural Association of St. John, primarily consists of people from Kenya who've moved to St. John. Similarly, the Irish Canadian Cultural Association has a membership of people with Irish ancestry. So just to give you the definition, the City of St. John's Ethnocultural Grant Program was established to further the city's goal in becoming the most welcoming community in Canada. The Ethnocultural Small Group Program supports new and existing ethnocultural groups in becoming incorporated, growing their membership, and improving service delivery through indirect financial or in-kind support provided by the city. In 2021, you will remember that the City of St. John allocated $20,000 under the Succeed and Stay initiative to support the incorporation or project development of ethnocultural groups in the City of St. John. In 2022, the application form and ethnocultural small grant policy were approved by the St. John Local Immigration Partnership, Council, Growth Committee, and the Common Council. In 2022, the City of St. John's Ethnocultural Small Grant Pilot Program successfully distributed 13 grants. Our goal was 5, just to put that in perspective. I wanted to show you, when you see on the screen, these are the groups that got incorporated. And you see the cost there, it's roughly around $200. But some of the groups sometimes need extra things, documentation for name change and things. So I'll just draw to your attention the Filipino Association of New Brunswick. There's a little bit of a different cost there. And just to explain that, it's because they needed paperwork to source their name and to sort out that another group had a similar name. So sometimes there are things like that that we're advising and helping them with. The grant, if you recall, had 2 parts. One was for incorporation and one was for support. So for support, it can look like the creation of a logo, a website, or particular things for events. So these are 3 examples of different groups that Red Latin, for example, created their logo. The Francophone du Southwest du Nouveau-Brunswick created their logo. And that picture that you see is the Nigerian Association, which created a website, and that's them at Culture Fest last year. In total, we spent just under $5,000, just to give you an idea. But again, our program was only open for a few months. So when we're having an annual grant, it will potentially be more expensive, or we'll be allocating more money, hopefully. The Ethnocultural Grant Program, the pilot, was between November 2021 and March 2022. And through that, there were 11 ethnocultural groups that went through getting grants and moving forward with their program. We were really pleased with the uptake that came from the groups, and the opportunity for them to become incorporated, the opportunity for them to be able to use the funds for events. And some of the things that they're doing are still ongoing. For example, the Latin Association that has their library reading of Spanish books to the children. This is every once a month Saturday event that happens, and it's still from our assistance with them. So they gave us a nice testimonial. They said the Ethnocultural Support Grant from the City of St. John was a catalyst for our organization. While talks were made prior to the announcement of the grant, once the grant was announced, it pushed our community to get organized and get incorporated. We are thankful to the City of St. John for this innovative approach to community development. We look forward to the future of the grant, and we can continue to collaborate with the City of St. John to support new residents in the community at large. We would like to build on the success to ensure that the ongoing sustainability of our 55 ethnocultural groups within the City of St. John. Based on past success, the Department of Growth and Community Services wishes to make the Ethnocultural Small Grant Program permanent. In its 2023 grant cycle, the program will aim to support 10 new projects, further realizing Common Council's 2021-2026 priority to become a welcoming community. And just on that note, the importance of the ethnocultural groups, many of you will recognize this is Raham's family, who came as refugees with 4, and now they have, I believe, almost 20 family members who are here in the city with us. So the importance of the ethnocultural groups is the well-established ethnocultural groups significantly increasing the city's value proposition to new and existing immigrants. These recognizable and comforting groups aid in the recruitment and long-term retention of immigrants, international students, and extended family members. Ethnocultural groups provide additional means to group members who may be homesick or may require personalized support. Having a variety of ethnocultural groups provides greater diversity in the city and allows for more cultural exchanges with current residents, which we see every day. The City of St. John's work with local ethnocultural groups is leading the way for municipal governments in New Brunswick, empowering equity, diversity, and inclusion in the community. And on that note, I'm proud to share with you that we were invited to the Atlantic Region Diversity and Inclusion and Equity Symposium hosted by the City of Fredericton. And they asked me to be a guest speaker on behalf of the City of St. John, because for the East Coast of Canada, we are the first municipality to have an ethnocultural grant. So they wanted to know how we did it, what it looked like, how the pilot went. And because it was such a huge success, we are now sort of mentors to the others. And I can tell you that should this be passed today and by Common Council, the City of Fredericton is waiting to replicate what we're doing and take it to their growth committee and their council. So we're trendsetters on this side of Canada for this, for sure, leading the charge. The 2 options for the ethnocultural grant that we wish to put forward is the incorporation or in-kind offering. And so, as mentioned previously, that can include name search, documentation, completing terms of reference, establishing a board of directors, helping and assisting with any documentation that's needed to open a bank account for the group, not-for-profit incorporation fees, and a variety of things. So this is the picture of the Ukrainian Association, and you know that they're growing by leaps and bounds all the time, so they're a wonderful example. The other piece in a supportive section of the grant would be $2,500. This is geared toward groups that are formally established, already incorporated, that want support for their group. And that can look like expenses for their website creation or hosting a website, graphic design for logo production, support for creating a social media platform, promotion or advertising to attract new members. And on that, I could share so many stories with you, but the different ethnocultural groups are doing amazing things, from airport pickup to creating familiar meals when people first arrive, to taking people around to helping them of where they can buy groceries and shop and find apartments. And so, we mustn't underestimate all of the things that these groups are doing to help people settle and be welcomed and included. Subject to Common Council approval, the application for ethnocultural small grants will be open from July 2023 and remain open until September or until the fund is exhausted. So, we wanted to do 2 allocations of funding. So one that would happen in September and another that would happen later in December. Staff will return to Growth Committee at the end of the year with a program update. Upon your recommendation, or our recommendation, a staff recommendation is that Common Council approve, that Growth Committee approve the ethnocultural grant program policy, and that we can take it before Common Council. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Jennifer. That was a great presentation. I'll shoot it over to Mayor Reardon.
Approval.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Harris. On the question, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. This is amazing work. I'm glad to hear we're being trendsetters. That's very exciting.
Thank you all. You're changing people's lives.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so up next we have the Urban Beautification Grant Update, and we're going to start with David Doublestein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to invite our planner, Eva Madsen, to speak about the beautification program and some updates that we are recommending. Again, the purpose of this program is to provide incentives for people to invest in beautification of their homes and small businesses, landscaping for front yards, increase reinvestment in facades. And so there's some changes that you're going to see today that you've heard about previously in prior staff presentations that intend expanding the area of the beautification, urban beautification program to the north end, and as well as we're considering some novel approaches to ensure more participants would be eligible. So without further ado.
Thanks for having me here to present on this. As said, this is going to be an updated amendment to the beautification grant policy. So the beautification grant program started in late 2014 as council directed staff to pursue the development of an incentive program to help reinvest in the facades and front yards of properties, which would help create a more desirable streetscape. And then the program was adopted in March 21st of 2016, and it continues to be in effect. The pilot program occurred in the South End, Uptown, and Waterloo Village of the city, and it was implemented, which implemented aspects of the goals and objectives of the municipal plan and the Central Peninsula Secondary Plan. And it's kind of acted as the pilot area for the grant program alongside the Central Peninsula Secondary Plan. And then the grant was amended in 2019 to include eligibility of exterior painting for side yards, a simplified scoring system, and then included some new area around City Road to greater align the boundaries. Staff committees have been meeting to award grants based on design criteria of materials and appearance, and an approved grant provides 35% of the cost of eligible work up to a maximum of $4,000 or up to $6,000 on a corner lot. And the program component was financed entirely through an annual budget of $50,000. Overall, the program has stimulated improvements to over 40 properties, leveraging over $500,000 in investments, which represents nearly $100,000 in grant funding. And improvements have been varied from doorways, windows, repointing facades, landscaping front yards. And so since the launch of the program, it has just focused on the Central Peninsula and has remained in the city's urban core. But as our attention kind of moves to other areas of the city, the transition of the grant program will support the undertaking of new neighborhood planning efforts. So that's kind of one of the reasons we're here today, is to talk about the transition to the north end of the city. It would allow an initial expansion into the north end while establishing a transition away from the Central Peninsula. So for 2023 is kind of the vision for this. The new proposed boundaries of the program are the Old North End and Douglas Avenue, with the intention that the grant boundary will be updated to align with the final boundary established in the North End neighborhood plan. A high portion of older homes in the Central Peninsula, the Old North End and Douglas Avenue, really fall outside of our heritage conservation area and don't have access to our main grants, which are heritage grants for beautification. And so this program means it's an important means to support aesthetic improvements to existing housing stock. It's also critical to note that Plan SJ identifies Douglas Avenue and Main Street as character corridors in the city, and these are noted for their strong cultural and social value, not just for their own neighborhoods, but for the broader communities around them. And so character corridors are places identified for investment in quality streetscaping, investment in the public realm, and investment in urban design. So in conjunction with the extension of the program to the Old North End and Douglas Avenue, staff are also proposing some updates to policy. So we would like to start with some updates to policy around expanding the qualifying work and updating our scoring system again. The beautification grant will now prioritize funding for remediation of unsightly and dilapidated conditions. And these amendments include allowing for things like high-end vinyl without point reduction. It includes the flankage yard adjacent to vacant lots as eligible work. It would allow for some language around requiring a transformative effect or an improvement to the subject site to help with maintenance, but to also really put some language around seeing improvement. So it's not people using the grant to simply change the facade. And then the big one here is allowing for adjustment to the reimbursement of total material costs and bringing that up from 35% to 100% coverage when undertaking painting or landscaping without a contract or a professional. So this was really to help tenants or landlords who maybe do the work themselves or can't access a contractor to cover more of the material costs, such as the paint, to really try to incentivize them to do some more work. And so this really aligns with our community enhancement project as well. The updated policy is going to just help bring our beautification grant really into alignment with this. As identified by the community enhancement project, financial benefits provided by incentives and grants can really encourage owners to bring their property into compliance with city bylaws. And by prioritizing unsightly and dilapidated conditions, the grant will ensure property bylaw compliance staff are equipped with more tools to achieve voluntary compliance in their cases, and this really leads to more positive outcomes for the communities. So the new boundary of the Old North End and Douglas Avenue was really chosen for this transition period, as it aligns also with the community enhancement project focus. The number of properties in these two neighborhoods, especially the Old North End, that have unsightly premises cases, dangerous and vacant buildings cases, minimum property standards cases, it's much higher than other communities in the North End, really making it a strong focus for beautification efforts. The stock of housing in these neighborhoods is also some of the oldest housing stock in the north end of the city, and the choice to initially focus on these two areas will allow for a directed focus that will support the enhancement or the community enhancement project, and will allow for more concentrated effort for the use of limited budget for the beautification program as we kind of stretch across two areas. So just touching briefly on the timeline, the intention is dependent on this committee and on Common Council's adoption of the updated policy is to launch effective July 1st. We have been working with communication teams, and we're going to devise an information rollout, and it would include the city's website, using public service announcements, social media posts. We've also designed some brochures and a poster that we would be putting in prominent community spaces within the Old North End, and staff will work with our community stakeholders to ensure the program is promoted within the Old North End. In addition, the brochures and information packages could be put together in an information handout that would be paired with grant applications to be used by bylaw enforcement teams and other key city staff to be provided to tenants and landlords in the North End. As stated previously, this is really meant to be a transition year for the program with the expansion into the North End, without just uprooting it from the Central Peninsula all at once. And with the expansion of the program, it'll allow for residents of the Central Peninsula to also have a final year, while also giving staff a chance to assess that boundary in the north end moving forward. So in conclusion, I think the principles of the beautification grant program really focus on reinvestment in the streetscape to enhance the public realm, and it really continues to remain a critical component in creating vibrant urban spaces. And the program will continue to achieve these principles while adding a new focus on compliance and with the city bylaws. And then the expansion into the Old North End and Douglas Avenue will create new opportunities in a much older but still very significant part of the city, and re-encourage that investment in streetscape and public realm. So our recommendation going forward is that Common Council receive and file the Urban Beautification Report, and that Common Council adopt the amended Urban Beautification Grant Policy. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Eva. Mayor Reardon? Move recommendation. Okay, seconder? Councillor Harris? Thank you so much. Councillor Harris, over to you for question. 1 second.
Did you have a question, Mayor? No, okay. With regards to materials, just remind me, is there any limitations on materials that can be purchased for that facade work, for that front-facing work?
Are you speaking of like the materials to build, or are you talking about things like tools?
Buildings, the stuff to build.
Yeah. So there is still going to be the limit of up to the 4,000. So if they want to, buy siding and stuff to do themselves, of course, it all goes before the committee before review as well. But it would be 100% of costs up to that 4,000 maximum.
Have we reviewed, was there any effort put into reviewing that $4,000 mark just based on the different cost that exists for some of these materials now?
We didn't really look into increasing that cost. That former amendment in 2016, I believe, was for up to 6,000 for corner lots and the like.
Right.
We are working with limited funding, and now that we're transitioning across 2 spaces, we're more limited with those funds as well.
Yeah, so I guess it's just a point for future consideration then. But I know one of my last years where I was working on a house just on the Lower West Side, which would be a pretty similar building, we had to go out and outsource. We had to get, I guess, non-accessible materials. We couldn't just get them off the shelf. We had to get them milled and we had to get them delivered just because they needed full-inch stock to be used to replace some of the window sashes and to replace some of the different siding materials and trims. So it may be something to consider for next year, just to review how many applicants asked for more or needed more, right? Because I just don't know if the 4,000 is the right number anymore with some of those changes, because it was pretty expensive in 21, and it's I think that price has come down a touch, but not compared to 19, that's for sure.
And I mean,
Thanks.
COVID did bring our costs up as well, so that is definitely something we could possibly look at in the future.
Yeah.
We do have to relook at the boundary in the coming year as well, so maybe at the same time we can look into.
Yeah, see if it's enough, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Eva. Wonderful presentation. I think if we need to recognize staff for being pilot project experts, I'd say, to see this one morph into something new and see it expand and transition to a neighborhood that desperately needs it. It's phenomenal. So I'd say look at what City of St. John's doing for awesome ideas. Thank you so much. So with that, I'll take a motion to approve staff recommendation. On the question, sorry. Yeah, all good. Thank you. Next is Community Enhancement Program, starting with Jacqueline.
Good afternoon, Chair Killen and members of the Growth Committee. We are before you this afternoon to make recommendations to move forward with an expenditure from the Community Services Reserve that would allow us to action a 15-month pilot under the approved Community Enhancement Pilot program that was previously presented and approved by Council earlier this year. And this initiative actually works hand in hand with the beautification program you just approved. It's a holistic approach to really try to put a focused effort on really tackling the condition of buildings earlier on, intervening earlier on so that we're able to protect them and ensure that they are maintained as a valuable source of affordable housing in the community. So with that, I'll turn things over to Ben Purington, who's the manager that oversees this program, and he'll walk you through the recommendations that are before you this afternoon.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Good afternoon, Chair Killen, members of Growth Committee. Today I'll be providing a brief update on ongoing community enhancement initiatives and a presentation on a resource proposal funded through the Community Services Reserve to conduct a community enhancement pilot. So I'd first like to provide a quick background on the Community Enhancement Project. This project began in 2022 and was a holistic one-year review of city programs with a focus on property bylaw compliance. The project identified areas of opportunity and developed improvements to our programs, allowing them to better execute on Council's priorities and align with the city's long-term strategic goals. In this presentation, I'll provide a brief update on 2 community enhancement initiatives from the project that were approved by Common Council, and after that, the resource proposal will be presented. The proposed resources would be used to expand our minimum property standards program and increase capacity of new dangerous and vacant building program initiatives. So beginning with the updates, starting on the new Unsightly repair program. This program was piloted at the start of the year with the target of seeing unsightly conditions repaired at 3 vacant buildings. To achieve that, repair notices have been issued on 3 properties earlier this year, and city repair on these properties is scheduled for late August or early September if approved by Common Council. The program is in good position to meet 2023 targets, and additional measures are being taken to increase capacity of the program after the pilot. And the next update is on the community enhancement advocacy efforts. So those being the ability to implement a vacant building tax or permit and an accelerated property tax sale process. So since advocacy was approved at the January 9th meeting of Common Council, staff have undertaken various engagements to progress these items, and they've been well received by the province, and notable progress is being made. Specifically on property tax sale, where process changes are currently underway. Overall, both items are in a promising state moving forward. So moving on next to the resource proposal for a community enhancement pilot. So this proposal focuses on 2 specific areas within property bylaw compliance that we believe can benefit from additional resources long term. Those 2 areas are enhancing our minimum property standards program, transitioning it from a reactive complaint-based approach to a proactive one, and allocating additional resources to new dangerous and vacant building program initiatives geared at increasing voluntary compliance, which includes the Unsightly repair program. This presentation focuses primarily on the opportunity within the minimum property standards program, but I can provide more context on the dangerous and vacant building program initiatives if need be. So as a brief background, the Minimum Property Standards Program enforces standards on rental buildings throughout St. John. Building deficiencies addressed through the program include leaks, molds, structural conditions, fire safety, safe exiting, and other issues. As with all of our compliance programs, voluntary compliance is the priority, and we achieve it in 90% of our cases. However, if owners do not comply, we can pursue charges and provincial court orders. This program benefits our community by improving tenant safety and therefore quality of life, which is important in our current economic climate, where tenants are faced with limited rental options due to low vacancy rates. It also enforces maintenance standards that maintain our older housing stock. The stock makes up a large portion of our current affordable housing inventory, and maintaining it will preserve our housing supply. And then finally, it provides early intervention opportunities when a building is deteriorating. Addressing issues first through this program can often prevent things like vacancy, abandonment, and demolition. So due to these benefits, improvements to the program were identified as an action item under the city's Affordable Housing Action Plan and as a goal within the city's 10-year strategic plan. So to improve the program, we want to move from a complaint-based approach to a proactive one where we actively seek out new minimum property standards cases within focus areas that have older housing stock. The reason for that is that the current complaint-based approach limits the number of buildings that we're able to impact through the program, which can cause problematic buildings to go without an inspection and buildings to deteriorate significantly before we're notified. From a tenant safety perspective, moving to a proactive approach would improve our program by allowing us to address unsafe conditions in all buildings, not just those with a complaint, and reduce tenant fears of submitting a complaint. In terms of maintaining stock, we would be able to get to buildings in a quicker time frame, which would ensure that if deterioration is occurring, we have a higher likelihood of catching it in the early stages. I'd like to highlight the implications that this program could provide on affordable housing. One of the 5 themes of the city's Affordable Housing Action Plan is around preserving and improving existing stock. The plan notes that existing stock is typically more affordable and can be prone to disrepair, and that maintaining the stock is the best opportunity to meet housing needs over time. The plan also states that a balanced approach between encouragement and enforcement is necessary, and we look to achieve that balanced approach through a voluntary compliance focus and through collaboration with the Provincial Housing Department. We wanted to highlight the area of opportunity within minimum standards and to show the limits of our current complaint-based approach. And to do that, we analyzed focus areas in the South Central Peninsula, North End, and Lower West Side. Through that analysis, we found that there were about 900 buildings between 3 and 12 units in those areas. And we found that a little over 1/3, about 35%, have been inspected by our program since 2010. This means that there are about 585 buildings with 3 or more units that have not been inspected in that time. And these would be the targets with our new proactive approach if we were to transition into one. Under the existing complaint-based approach, it could take 15 to 20 years to get to those buildings, but transitioning to a proactive approach would allow us to address them within 6 to 7 years. I'd like to acknowledge that that is still a long time, but it's a significant improvement to the pace we're currently able to work at. So now moving on to the resourcing required, staff is recommending a 15-month community enhancement pilot with additional staff costing approximately $215,000. The additional staff would start in September 2023, and if the pilot is successful, a recommendation to sustain these resources long-term would be brought forward for consideration under the 2025 budget. This next slide highlights the level of service that we could expect if increased resourcing was sustained after a successful pilot. We would expect resolved cases to reach 80 cases per year, more than almost doubling our current output under our minimum property standards program. And then for vacant buildings, we would expect resolved cases to reach 65 cases per year, up from our current targets of 50, and for our enforcement output to more than double under our new unsightly repair program, going from 10 notices per year to our current target of 4. These next slides show the difference in cumulative resolved cases in each of our programs that we would expect if we maintain these resources. So for the minimum property standards program, we would anticipate resolving an additional 85 cases between now and 2026 if additional resources were sustained. And this would result in around 300 additional units being made safe, so quite a significant impact. And then for the dangerous and vacant building program, it would result in about 40 additional resolved cases by 2026, which would add 60 units back to the housing supply. So in conclusion, moving our minimum property standards program to a proactive approach will provide significant benefits to the City of St. John, specifically around tenant safety and ability to maintain our housing stock. We're recommending a 15-month community enhancement pilot to achieve that transition and dedicate additional capacity toward new dangerous and vacant building efforts. This pilot will require additional staff members at a cost of $215,000 and would allow us to capitalize on areas of opportunity identified by the Community Enhancement Project and realize goals outlined by the Affordable Housing Action Plan and the city's 10-year strategic plan. With that, that concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ben. Mayor Reardon?
Hi, thanks, Ben, or thanks, Chair. Thanks, Ben, for the presentation. It's great. I'll move the recommendations. I just want to make a couple comments. One, I love the proactive approach. I think it demonstrates that we know what we want. We're willing to, we're willing to ensure that that standard is kept by everyone. I like the pilot approach as well because that's evidence-based decision-making going forward, and we have to do that if we're going to be spending the taxpayers' money. I like the additional staff because I think that demonstrates a real commitment. And they all always say that your priorities aren't in your plans, it's in your budget. So we move forward with that. I think that's great. And I like that it's informed by the 10-year strategic plan and goals and the Affordable Housing Action Plan. So checks all the boxes for me, Ben. It's 2 thumbs up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship. And Councillor Harris?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I've agreed. It's a home run in so many ways. It's going to help a lot with, doing what we can at the local level to address these unsafe units and the crisis overall. The question I have around the pilot, I know in the past, well, we just went through this with trying to find out, a person around housing. How are we staffing this? What is our anticipated length of time? I know Commissioner Hossack's not here, but I know there's been difficulty finding staff. Is there anything that we're doing differently this time on that front to find them more quickly or to massage the terms around the contract? Because I know there was a limitation before that we had to extend it. Anyway, just curious about the staffing piece.
I guess Ms. Bovanoff's going to take that question.
Thank you. I can take that question through you, Chair, to the councillor. So with the positions that we're looking at filling for this pilot program, one would be assistant building inspector. Those are typically civil technicians, and we typically have quite a bit of success recruiting for those positions. The other position is for a professional staff person, typically a junior engineer or somebody like that. And again, we have pretty good luck recruiting for those positions depending on timing. So we're feeling pretty positive at this stage, and no cause for us to worry yet. So we fully anticipate that we'll have positions in place in September. I mean, remains to be seen, but typically we have good luck.
Okay, that's good to know. I mean, it's just I get that they were different positions we were trying to fill, so that's just important information. Thanks.
Excellent. So I think I just need a seconder for that. Councillor Harris, thank you. Councillor Lowe. So thank you so much. On the question, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you so much. That'll go on to council for anyone watching. And with that, I'll just take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Lowe and Mayor Reardon. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Have a great day.